we're coming up to the end of the church year, right? Next Sunday is the end, the end of the liturgical calendar, Christ the King. 2 weeks from now, Advent begins. And as always, we see the coming to this end, that the readings turn our attention toward the big picture. What really lasts and what doesn't. Now, in the gospel, the disciples are admiring the temple in Jerusalem. It was the pride of the people, the center of their life and worship. And Jesus shocks them by saying, the days will come when there will not be left a stone upon another stone. Now, he's reminding them that even the most impressive things built by human hands eventually fall. Everything we see, the buildings, the institutions, even the nations of the world, all have their day. I mean, think about it. Like, how many empires and countries have risen and fallen since the time of Christ? And the church remains, right? But what we see, what endures, is the kingdom of God and our perseverance in faith. Now, this can sound a little unsettling. Jesus is talking about wars, earthquakes, persecution, but he also says, do not be afraid. By your perseverance, you will secure your lives. In other words, don't let fear rule your heart. Stay faithful, stay grounded in God, and keep doing the good that's in front of you. And that's a message that fits perfectly with where we're at in the calendar right now. This past week, we just observed Veterans Day. And we're not that far off. We're about a week and a half away from Thanksgiving. And so when I think of the veterans in our parish, those who served and sacrificed, I see living examples of what Jesus is talking about. Perseverance through trial. And many of them faced fear, uncertainty, hardship, and yet stayed faithful to their duty. Right? They stayed faithful to their brothers and sisters in arms and to something greater than themselves. Now, that same kind of steady courage is what we're called to show in our Christian life. Now, St. Paul in the second reading adds another layer. Right? He tells the Thessalonians not to grow idle, not to sit around waiting for the end of the world. I think in a modern parlance, it's like don't just sit in the basement of your house playing video games all day. It's like, come on, guys. But rather he says, go about your daily work faithfully. Because you see, holiness, he says, isn't found only in the big heroic moments. It's found in the simple, quiet acts of faithfulness we live out each day. Showing up, serving others, doing our work with integrity, being kind when it would be easier not to be. Right? See, that's the soil where holiness grows. And then we have Thanksgiving coming up, right? It's that time of year when we slow down, take stock, and remember the blessings we've been given. You know, it's always a fun time. It's always a good time to do that. I think, you know, the more and more, the older I get, the more I get grateful at. Now, my parents weren't perfect, but there's certain things I appreciate what they did and how certain lessons they instilled. I become more and more grateful for them, and I want to find different ways of showing. Like one, for instance, it's just in reflecting upon the second reading, right? I think it was one of my dad's favorite passages, you know, especially growing up as a farmer's kid. Those who will not work will not eat. It's one of his favorites. He threw that one around all the time. You know, but But one of the things that they did, I don't know how intentional or how, but they showed that no matter how old we were a part of this family. Things weren't just going to happen for us, for instance. Like, it's a lot of times, like, I don't know if it's one of those times, I don't know where, if you remember as a kid, it's like when you realized, like, you always showed up and like, oh, food on the table, where did this magically come from? And then like this, it's almost as though then maybe sometimes you get this expectation like, oh, and look, all the food that I actually like is on the table. But my mother was very, like, she would do these little things to kind of train us a little bit out of that. So one of the things she used to do, I remember, especially when we moved to the house that I grew in. I think we moved when I was going into second grade. So it was between second grade and fourth grade, somewhere within that period of time. She slowly started training me over time. Because my brother and I would be the first ones home, coming off the school bus. And she was like, okay, I want dinner started. I want dinner to be ready at a particular time. And so she would say, all right, I'm 9 years old. She's like, all right, when you get home, at this particular time, turn the oven on to this temperature. When you see this come on, it's ready. Put this pan that I prepared in the oven for this amount of time. So that ideally, by the time it was done, we would all be home ready to go. My mother was very type A. But then over the course of time, she would start taking less and less, versus she was, but to the point of, before we left for school at the beginning of the day, she'd like, all right, figure out what we're having for dinner. But eventually over time I got to starting enjoying it. It wasn't a chore. It became a joy to be able to serve my parents, my brother, and to build some creativity in preparing this menu, right? To start to switch out that growing up on a potato farm, we always had to have potatoes. So I would force my dad have rice, because I would throw back on him what he used to tell us when we started complaining about some of the food on the table at times. He would always say, did you cook it? No. Okay, then eat it. And there was times whenever my dad would be tempted to complain, I look at him, Dad, did you cook it? No, then eat it. And I'm so grateful for that. It reminded me, like, this is not to take things for granted, but that we are part and participatory in this family life. Because you see, gratitude changes how we see the world. And so when Jesus talks about wars and destructions, it's easy to only see the darkness, but a thankful heart can still see light breaking through. And so gratitude helps us notice the Son of Justice that Malachi promised, that healing presence of God that rises over the chaos of our days. So as this church year draws to a close, the invitation is simple. Persevere, be faithful, and stay grateful. Honor those who've shown us courage, give thanks for what we've been given, and lift your eyes toward the horizon, where the dawn of Christ's kingdom is always breaking in. The one kingdom that will never pass away.